water today. Yeah, 11 vanilla elephants, unique in New York. So you're a VFR pilot, you got your private or commercial, now you want to step it up, get your instrument rating and fly in the cloud. There's a lot of jargon to navigate through, so now we're going to simplify it. So the first step into getting your instrument rating here at Adelaide Aviation is the instrument rating exam, also known as the IREX. That's the only exam you have to do, just one. Onto the flight training, single or multi, up to you. You can get an instrument rating on a single engine aircraft or a multi-engine aircraft. There's going to be a couple of things that you're going to get in your license. IAP 2D and IAP 3D. This stands for instrument approach and a 2D approach and a 3D approach. As nice as it is flying on a beautiful day with blue skies, it's not always like that and you have places to be. So if it's cloudy, you got to fly through it. Now, the problem is, you can't see anything when you're flying in the cloud. How are you going to get down to the runway? Well, we're going to use our instrument rating to do one of these IAP 2D or 3D approaches to get down to the runway and land the aircraft. All right, so let's talk about the two different approaches. IAP 2D, IAP 3D. What's the difference? A 2D approach only gives you lateral guidance down to a runway. 3D approach gives you lateral and vertical guidance down to the runway. So you can be flying completely in cloud and break out very low to the ground and have the runway right there in front of you. Flying through cloud isn't the only thing you're going to use your instrument rating for. The old days of getting back 10 minutes before last flight, that goes out the window. You can use your instrument rating to fly at night too. So flying around visually, you probably heard on the radios, climb via SID, descend via star, and all these new phrases that you haven't heard before. In this video, we're going to break it down and introduce some new terms for you. Some of those being 2D approaches, VOR, NDB, RNAV, localizer, or a 3D approach, ILS, instrument landing system. All that fancy terminology that you just heard and that I just told you probably means nothing to you right now, but don't worry, we got you and we're going to go through it all. So at the end of your flight test, the testing officer is going to write in your license IAP 2D and 3D. So you're going to learn to use some new systems and instruments in the aircraft. So let's have a look at what they are now. 2D approaches. We're coming into land, but we can't see anything. How are we going to line the aircraft up with the runway? Well, 2D approaches, there's a few different ways we can do it. We can use ground-based aids. This is the NDB, VOR, or the localizer. Or we can use the GPS in the aircraft, which is called an RMP approach. All right, so let's talk about NDB, non-directional beacon. Real old piece of technology, probably around when the dinosaurs were here. And essentially it's a ground station, looks like this, and it essentially tells the aircraft where this station is. We can fly to it, we can fly from it, we can fly around it, we can do whatever we want with it. Pretty old, not great. To use the NDB, we need this instrument here in our aircraft, what we call the ADF, Automatic Direction Finder. This thing is going to point directly to the NDB so the aircraft knows where it is. A little bit of a newer piece of kit as the dinosaurs were being phased out. They brought in this VOR, very high frequency omnidirectional range is the full name of it. A little bit of a better technology than the NDB, and you'll need this instrument in your aircraft to use it, which uses a CDI and an OBS. CDI being course deviation indicator, OBS being an omni-bearing selector. Couple of new terms there, and we're going to go through that soon in the video. Let's talk about another 2D approach. As humankind kind of grew up and got our together, we invented GPS, and we can use that to fly the aircraft as well. So we have what we call an RNP approach, or Required Navigation Performance. Much better, doesn't use any ground-based aids, just uses satellites in the air and the GPS in our aircraft. So what are we going to use to fly this RNP approach? We're going to use our fancy GPS in the aircraft. Love the GPS. How you doing? One more 2D approach we have is what we call the localizer. That's normally utilized as a part of the ILS, which, talking about the ILS, let's move on to 3D approaches. The instrument landing system, which uses both a glide slope and the localizer to guide the aircraft both laterally and vertically down to the runway. What you have to understand, people, is we're living in a different time now. We got cheeseburgers, we got Elon Musk, we got Cardi B, and this guy. And we have new technology as well. So let's talk about the localizer and the instrument landing system. The 3D approach that we're going to use. The best type of approach to use. Gets us lateral guidance, gets us vertical guidance, gets us right down to the runway for a safe landing. Cool, so what is this actual localizer thing? It's a physical station on the ground big long bar at the end of the runway, emits a few beams, a little bit of voodoo, and it lines the aircraft up laterally. So the localizer lines the aircraft up laterally with the runway. We use an instrument in the aircraft, move side to side, tell us which way the runway is going and how to line up with it. So the localizer is coupled with a glide slope. Essentially there's a little box on the side of the runway, and this box emits a beam straight out from the runway, and we use this beam in our aircraft to follow it straight down all the way onto the runway. So what instrument are we going to use to shoot an ILS? Well, in most aircraft it's the HSI, or the Horizontal Situation Indicator. It looks like this, and we'll show you what an ILS approach looks like very short.
Cool, so we have a look at the compass rose in the left screen, in the bottom, in the middle, just here. What you're gonna see is our localizer. So you can see LOC1, so it's the localizer 1. And what we're doing at the moment is we're flying to intercept an imaginary line, which is this white one just here, which is what the localizer is beaming out to the aircraft. So if we now have a look back at the left screen, what you're going to see here is that imaginary line in space, and the aircraft is flying to go and intercept that line. So this is directly in line with the runway. So what the aircraft will do shortly is it will turn left to intercept this localizer. So what you'll see now, the aircraft is turning left now that it has intercepted this localizer bar, and now the aircraft is just going to follow this line in space, which is going to take us straight down to the runway. What you'll also notice now is on the glide slope bar just here, there's a little green diamond, and that's showing us where the glide path is. So that's that imaginary flight path that the aircraft will take down onto the runway. So if the dot is above the middle line here, it means that we need to fly higher to intercept the glide path. If it goes below the line, it means we are too high and we're going to fly lower to intercept the flight path. So what's going to happen is, as we get a little bit closer on the approach, you'll see that dot slowly start to move down, and with the aircraft's autopilot function, as soon as it hits that middle line, the aircraft will start descending to follow that imaginary line down to the runway. So in summary, we have the localizer for lateral guidance, and we have the glide slope for vertical guidance. And you can see now that the aircraft is about to, or has intercepted that glide path. You can see the aircraft has automatically started a rate of descent to follow this glide path down to the runway.
Cool, so in summary, a 3D approach, like the ILS, what we call a precision approach, is an approach with both lateral and vertical guidance, whereas a 2D approach only incorporates the lateral guidance, like what we spoke about before with the VOR, NDB, and localizer. There's a whole bunch of random stuff that's hopefully confused you more, but if you do want to learn about it and get your instrument rating, courses starting mid-April, Adelaide Aviation. We'll see you soon.